This is Mr. Rasmussen. This is lesson 11B. And in this lesson, we're going to be looking at the anatomy of the human excretory system. So we're going to be taking a look at the bits and pieces, and we'll talk more about the physiology or what the parts do in a later lesson. But for today, we just want to get familiar with the parts. So if we look at it, where we're going to start is we're going to look at macro anatomy. And if this is taking a look at the abdominal cavity of a human being. So in here we see how this is going to work is I'm going to put a label up on the side, and then you'll see an arrow pointing to the structure that we're talking about. So for instance, if we start off with the kidneys, kidneys are located right here. They are the major structure that filters the blood for the excretory system. The ureter is the tube carrying the urine right here that runs from the kidney to the bladder. The renal artery is located right here. It supplies blood to the kidney. The renal vein, on the other hand, is right below it down here, and we can see that that pulls blood away from the kidney. So the renal vein would contain filtered blood or clean blood. Sitting right on top of the kidneys are the adrenal glands. They're located right here. Right down here, so goes kidneys, ureter, and the ureters lead to the bladder, which stores the urine down here. And then finally, the tube that leaves the body is the urethra here, and that would lead the urine from the bladder out of the body. So that's the macro anatomy of the excretory system. What we're going to do next slide, real quick, is we're just going to look at the anatomy of the kidney itself. So we're going to break apart the kidney. As you can see, we're going to dissect it in a few days just to take a look at it. But right now, I just want to look at the parts so you can identify them in the lab. So right here, here's a kidney. This is a dissection through the kidney. If we were to slice the kidney in half, this is what we would look at, and we would find these parts, and you'll be able to identify them when you see them. And here are the parts that you're going to run into. The first one is the renal artery, and we can see that pretty clearly right here. That's this red artery carrying blood into the kidney right here. And then right below it again we have the renal vein. That's the blue one. When you dissect these in class, they won't be red and blue. You won't be able to easily identify which one's the renal artery and the renal vein. But then also coming out of it is the ureter, and that's what's going to carry the urine out of the kidney. Go down, here's the ureter. Okay, the hilus. The hilus is a region of the kidney that's located right here, and it contains sort of that dent, or that indentation where all the tubes run into, and that's the hilus region of the kidney. The renal pelvis is another region, and you can see it on this picture, and it's sort of pictured white, or sort of shown white in a lighter color. It's this region right here that sort of collects the urine after the blood's been filtered, and then it'll channel it down the ureter. So this region right here is the renal pelvis. Now the renal pelvis is broken into two parts. It's broken into these major calyxes, which is right here. It's these major branches. And then there are some minor branches that reach out to these things we call the medulla, and they're called the minor calyxes, and they're located right here. So that's the renal pelvis. The renal pelvis branches off into major calyxes and minor calyxes, and then eventually they lead to the medullas. We talked a little bit about, the major region that filters the blood, is this region on the outside. This is called the renal cortex. So the renal cortex is located right here. Also, we have these renal pyramids. You can see them pretty clear here. They're kind of colored like a dark maroon red. These are the renal pyramids. They're also called the medulla region. So there's the cortex and the medulla. The renal pyramids eventually lead to those minor calyxes, and then to major calyxes, and then to the pelvis, and then out the ureter. The renal columns are these spots here located in between the medullas, in between the renal pyramids. And the renal capsule, in this you'll be able to see pretty clearly. There is a tissue, it's kind of a thicker tissue layer that surrounds the outside of the kidney, and that's called the renal capsule, and that's located right here. If you have any questions, class, feel free to ask me anytime. This is the anatomy that I need you to know of the macro anatomy of the human body and of the kidney. So make sure you can identify these parts when you look at them in lab. If you have any questions, class, feel free to ask me anytime. This has been lesson 11B. Have a good one.